God. It's full of cheesy 1994 special effects. In Part 1, we looked at the final countdown, where an aircraft carrier is transported back in time from 1980 to 1941 and has to consider the consequences of possibly changing history. Today we're going to do it the other way round. Gentlefolk, non-commissioned gentlefolk, and conspiracy theorists, 1984's The Philadelphia Experiment. Our story begins in 1943, where Dr. James Longstreet is doing some final calculations on an experiment to be done in the morning. His assistant is perfectly willing to accept that they've got everything right, but Longstreet is still uncertain.
Come on, James, get some sleep.
We might have missed something.
1,000 triple checks and we might have missed something. James, tomorrow we make history. See you in the morning.
And as often happens in these cases, Longstreet was right. The experiment is to use a special electromagnetic field to make the ship, the Eldridge, radar invisible. Unfortunately, as expected, something goes wrong. Very wrong.
Believe this. The Eldridge is beginning to fade, sir. She's gone.
I didn't think it was possible.
She's radar invisible.
Congratulations, Doctor. Looks like you've just taken the entire German fleet out of this war.
Captain Robertson, sir. It's a cutter. They say the Eldridge has vanished.
Of course she has. She's radar invisible.
No, sir. She's really vanished. She's gone.
What's going on here? What is it? Shut the damn thing! Shut it down! Jimmy! All right? Okay. Get out of here. Let's get the hell out of here. Come on, get up! What do you see right now?
Stars, moon. It's night.
Did you see a ship? I mean, did you see the ship, the town?
Yeah. I was spinning around. What's going on here?
What about your hand?
Oh, it's okay now. There's nothing wrong with it.
Finding a highway, they make their way to a diner. But it seems the radiation had an unusual effect, causing unstable electrical discharges, and Jimmy is having violent seizures. Things quickly escalate out of control, and they're forced to kidnap a young woman, Allison Hayes, to drive them out of there.
What's the date?
The date is the 17th.
The year?
Are you kidding? It's 1984. What's going on with you two? Are you on drugs or something?
1984. What about the war?
What war?
The war!
Vietnam?
World War II, Germany and Japan.
What about it?
Who won?
What are you one. What do you think?
Now earlier, the site of the disappearance had been investigated by a mysterious old man. And now in underground base, we find out that he is in fact Dr. Longstreet 40 years later, and let's say he's up to his old tricks.
But the energy shows work. Missiles were deflected. The town was initially saved. The disappearance was an
But why
after
now? I don't understand any significant difference between this experiment and any other anti-missile test we've run so far.
Larry.
No,
Sheer scope of the
that wouldn't be
electromagnetic
enough
field.
to do it.
Of course it would. It's the only variable. The amount of energy it took to deflect the missiles into hyperspace was so great,
Look,
it created a wrinkle in the continuum.
we shut the energy off. We turned the generators down. Why didn't the town simply rematerialize?
Maybe there's another power source functioning.
Where?
Inside the zone, in hyperspace itself.
What would be the possible source?
You get the meteorological report?
Yes.
It's incredible. It's as if every storm front in the region were being sucked into this one tiny zone. We have 3 separate reports of tornadoes, and that doesn't happen here.
Where's it centered now?
About 40 miles due east of here.
I'll be back.
What are the possible energy source?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought you should know there was a security break. At least 2 men were in the area of the experiment when it took place. I've put out a full alert.
They're ultimately taken off the road by the police, and Jimmy is hospitalized, with Allison deciding not to press charges, and convinces David the only way to really help Jimmy is to tell his story. Probably not going to go over terribly well.
We were involved in an experiment.
What kind of an experiment?
It's electronic. Deflecting radars so a ship couldn't be detected at sea. I didn't understand all of it.
You were exposed to electronic energy field of some sort?
I think so. But there was something else. Something else happened. We got caught up in this freak thing. Just the 2 of us. I don't know what it was, but somehow we got moved in time.
What do you mean?
Time. This time, it's not ours. We weren't here when it happened. The experiment took place on a ship in the Philadelphia harbor. It was 1943, October. Does this sound crazy? You know, or is this sort of thing possible now?
What are your memories of 1943? Are they clear to you?
You think I'm making this up?
I didn't say that. I just want you to describe something in 1943 for me.
I can describe everything. 1943 was yesterday for me.
I'm not doubting you, Mr. Hurdy.
But like hell you're not doubting me. You don't believe anything I'm saying.
David, he's just trying to help.
Hey, look, I'm not lying. You think I make this up? What the hell would I make it up for?
What the hell's going on here?
There's some more people in here!
Get back! Get back! Get back!
Oh, and that mysterious meteorological phenomenon I mentioned earlier, yeah, it's going to be a problem too.
How's your reading? I must have a malfunction. I keep getting negative pressure that keeps dropping. It's impossible.
Oh, it's pulling the air in. Pulling everything in.
How?
We opened up a hole, Barney. We opened it up, and it stayed open.
God, you can feel it. You can feel the energy.
They send a camera probe into the vortex and find that, well, their problems have just doubled.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Transition.
Good God, there it is.
What's a ship doing in there?
Heading to David and Jimmy's hometown, they go to the ranch in Jimmy's name and meet Jimmy's wife, who recognizes David even after 40 years.
All of this time, he was telling the truth. All of this time, and nobody would believe him, not even me.
Who was telling the truth?
Jimmy.
Then he came back.
Yes.
Well, what happened?
Well, nobody would listen to him. We all believed the Navy, and they said that he'd been affected by the experiment.
And the ship and the other guys?
Burned some of them. Some of them died.
What about me? What happened to me, Pamela?
You never came back, David. You just never came back. Till now.
After a whole lot more mishaps with the military police and chases and car crashes, this movie tends to stretch these things out a bit. They've ultimately ended up back at the base, where we learn that possibly only David can solve this problem. Why? Because technically he's already done it.
What the hell have you done, Longstreet?
Replay the probe. Recognize them? Your ship and our town trapped together?
How did it happen?
We don't know exactly. But somehow the electromagnetic fields created in two experiments, one in 1943 and the other now, cross-connected. They created a vortex, a hole in the space-time continuum, and you fell through it.
What the hell are you talking about?
In 1943, when the Eldridge came back, the hole closed behind it. This time it stayed open. It's like a gigantic vacuum sucking everything into it. Now, we can't stop it, but I believe that you can.
How?
Don't listen to him, David.
The source of energy explosion in the vortex is the generators on the Eldridge. You have to go back and shut them down, David.
I'm not doing anything for you.
I'm afraid you've no alternative. You see, in a very real sense, you've already done it. You see, when I interviewed the survivors of the Eldridge, they told me that you were the one who shut down the generators.
But I didn't.
Not yet. But we know that eventually you will. You're still multiply connected, David. Your hand. The molecules still drift. As long as that hole stays open, you'll continue to deteriorate. Until you return to 1943. Same as your friend Parker.
He's lying, David. Don't listen to anything he says.
I wish to God I were.
Leave him alone. Just leave him alone.
He's right, Allison. I can feel it.
What am I to say to you, David? I'm sorry. I've lived with this thing for 40 years. There's not a day I've been free of it.
But all this, new experiment, you did it again.
Yes. Yes.
David agrees to go back, and they give him a special suit insulated with copper coils to protect him from the electromagnetic radiation. One last kiss on Allison, and it's into the unknown.
I'll blow this thing. It's going to pull you straight up into the air. You ready?
Let's go.
All right, good luck, Sailor.
Davy. What happened?
Back on the ship.
But the hospital.
It's all over. You're gonna be all right now. But I gotta go, buddy.
You're gonna go back?
I don't know. I just can't stay here.
Will I ever see you again?
One of these days. I promise you that. Look, I gotta go. Take it easy, buddy.
He did it. God damn it, he did it! He did it!
So the Eldridge and the town are back. But what of David? Hoping against hope, Allison drives out to the test site.
You know what? Got it all figured out. Navy owes me 40 years back pay.
So that was the Philadelphia experiment. How was it? It was okay. It tends to drag a little bit in some places, and the expedition is a bit clunky, but overall it's reasonably interesting, and in some places even a little bit exciting. Michael Pare as David does a very good job of showing a man literally out of his depth and out of his time, but using his military training to try to keep as calm as possible, and working to help first Jimmy and then possibly find a way for himself to get back to his own time. Ultimately becoming the hero when he realizes that he has to go back, and making his own choice to return to the present day, not just because history said so, but because this time it's his choice. There's a little bit of the military science can't be trusted element in this, in that Dr. Longstreet performed the same experiment twice, with the same kind of electromagnetic energy, despite having the lesson of the 1943 event to tell him, don't. Now, before we go any further, I think it's time we set a few things clear. This was based originally off a book called The Philadelphia Experiment, which was supposedly based off a top-secret experiment during the war involving electromagnetic energy and an attempt to make a ship red or invisible. The book is fictional. It never happened. Not only was the Eldridge actually on maneuvers at the time of the supposed experiment, but 5 of the people reported in the book to have died as a result of it actually survived to the end of the war. The closest possible inspiration for the story was an experiment during the war to use high-voltage electricity to degauss a ship's hull in an ultimately successful attempt to avoid magnetic sea mines. The only casualty was one sailor who was electrocuted, a tragic but understandable fate given the amount of voltage required. So as a bit of reasonably enjoyable 80s cheese, I'm going to give this 2.5 Maple Leafs out of 5. Not exactly fantastic, but not too bad. Michael Pare does a pretty decent job, and the special effects for the time are reasonable. Does make you wonder though, maybe this hole in space and time caused a few ripples? Maybe influencing a storm leaking 1941 to 1980? I'm Sam Kennedy, Critic, and I'll see you next time.
We opened up a hole, Bonnie.